Let's say you do actually manage to destroy Hamas in Gaza. Why would that deflect Iran from its major goal, as you describe it?
I didn't say that it would deflect it from the major goal. I said that there are twin goals. One is to defeat Hamas in Gaza because it's trying to use its proxies and other means to conquer the Middle East. Stop that. But secondly, and in parallel to that, act against Iran's attempt to develop nuclear weapons. You're quite right. They're two separate issues, but they're joined in the hip. And the hip is Iran's aggression and ideology, which has to be blocked here and there.
Watch as Netanyahu and Murray rip the mask off the Middle East's most dangerous charade. While Qatar builds Western skyscrapers with one hand, they're bankrolling Hamas with the other. From Iran's uranium enrichment to Hamas's 300-mile terror tunnels, this isn't just another Middle East crisis. It's Netanyahu's Churchill moment. The stakes? Western civilization's survival against Islamic extremism's relentless advance. Ready for the shocking truth about who's really pulling the strings?
Well, I want to come on to that in a second, but before we do, can we just touch on Qatar quickly? You had enormous success in recent years with the Abraham Accords of countries in the region signing agreements, normalization agreements with Israel. But there's a number of countries that stand out, and perhaps most obvious is Qatar at the moment. Qatar hosts the leadership of Hamas, it funds Hamas, it also funds significant amounts of infrastructure, is invested in infrastructure in countries like Britain, in the United States, just been caught spying on a number of US senators. What should the West's attitude towards Qatar be?
I think we should demand from Qatar that hosts Hamas leaders. They host Hamas leaders. They fund Hamas. They also operate Al Jazeera, which is just distorts the picture. Not in English, but in Arabic, it's a major source of incitement in the region. To use their leverage, and they have considerable leverage over Hamas, to achieve the release of the remainder of our hostages in the immediate time, to get the medicine that we put in there, that they promised that would reach our hostages.
But if Qatar does actually have the power to influence Hamas, what excuse is there for the hostages not having been released? Does Qatar have the influence or not? And if it does have the influence, why isn't it using it?
It has considerable influence, and I expect them to use it.
Are you confident they will?
No, but I expect them to do it.
And what are the repercussions if they don't?
Well, I think that the entire world is looking at Qatar, and they want to see if they use all the means at their disposal. They have significant means, and again, I expect them to do it, and I think other countries should as well.
What would, for instance, the United States be able to do about Qatar, or Great Britain, or other countries with?
That's something I'll speak to them directly about.
You'll speak to the leaders of Britain and America about that.
Mm-hmm. But I expect Qatar to live up to its promise, to use its influence and achieve the release of the hostages and the delivery of the medicines right away.
It complains, of course, that it's an intermediary. But do you think Qatar is an intermediary?
Well, look, I don't think they're an intermediary that is passive. I think they have enormous leverage on Hamas. And again, I'll say it the nth time, I expect them to use their leverage.
Let's come on to the bigger question then, Iran. Everywhere in the region, whether it's in Gaza, whether it's in Lebanon, whether it's in Yemen with the Houthis, everything leads back to Iran. Mm-hmm. How can you solve any of this without addressing the question of Iran? It seems to me you're at risk of fighting skirmishes in the Iranian war, but your prime enemy that says it wants to annihilate this country we're sitting in is still sitting in Tehran.
Yeah, well, I think that a total victory over Hamas will impact this larger contest, because people will see who's winning. Israel won or Iran won. The West won or Iran won. And I think that will have an influence on other countries in the region and other conflicts in the region. But secondly, there's a larger issue as well, and that's Iran's quest to develop nuclear weapons.
Qatar, that miniature monarchy, bankrolling both Western skyscrapers and Hamas terrorists, plays both sides with Olympic-level precision. While hosting Hamas leaders in luxury hotels, they've poured $50 billion into Western infrastructure. Meanwhile, their Al Jazeera network preaches peace in English, while their Arabic broadcasts call terrorists noble resistance fighters. Talk about having your cake and eating it too. How long will the West keep dancing with these duplicitous devils?
Because if you can see what Iran is doing now without nuclear weapons. It's sending terrorists across the Middle East and the world. It's trying to subvert governments. It's using its Houthi proxies to block the international maritime route in the Red Sea. Its proxies are killing Americans as we speak.
In Iraq and...
Well, yes, in many places, not only there. And the question is, and attacking them continuously. So this is what Iran is doing without nuclear weapons. Now imagine they had nuclear weapons, and we understand, we can see in the world, what does it mean when you have a country that is aggressive in intent and has nuclear weapons? You could see what is happening with a much smaller country, a much less dangerous country, North Korea. It develops nuclear weapons and half of Asia quakes in fear, can threaten Japan, and maybe very soon the United States itself. Well, Iran is different from North Korea because Iran has an ideology of domination and conquest and subjugation. They call us the small Satan. They call the U.S. the great Satan. They chant death to Israel, death to America. Can the United States, can Europe, can the civilized world allow such a regime to have nuclear weapons? And the answer is no. So the jury is out on all of us.
You've been calling for stronger international attention towards Iran for decades now. Mm-hmm. But yet Iran seems to have been getting closer to the bomb. Its influence in this region seems to have only widened. Whose failure is that?
Well, I think that we've delayed Iran's quest for the bomb, which was not obvious, but probably by a decade. But we haven't stopped it. I think my government worked. Sometimes I worked alone against the entire world. It said, we'll make a deal with them. The so-called JCPOA, that will stop them. Didn't stop them one bit. It gave them the means to develop centrifuges that can enrich uranium at far higher rates, and gave them billions of dollars to boot in order to develop their terror infrastructure and their military industries, which they're now using to help Russia. All of that was done against my warnings, and I fought alone, sometimes completely alone. But we did manage successive governments under my leadership and was able to halt Iran's march to the bomb, and sometimes with American support. I think that this is a vital interest of all of us, because Iran is different from other countries that possess nuclear weapons, with the exception of North Korea. I'm not sure that it has the careful calculus of cost and benefit that anyone holding nuclear weapons should have. It's not at all clear, because they're a theological thuggery. They're very aggressive, and they have a theology, a radical Islamic theology, which points them in direction not only of the conquest of the Middle East, but of global domination. Now, you may think, oh, that can't be true. It is true. It's exactly what animates them. And you wake up, Churchill, I think, used to say that democracies sleep until the jarring gong of danger wakes them up. Well, I think too many countries and too many leaders have been asleep too long. We have to act to assure that Iran will not have nuclear weapons.
Iran, that theological tinderbox masquerading as a nation-state, makes North Korea look like a garden party. While enriching uranium to 84% purity, they're busy turning the Middle East into their personal chessboard. Their Houthi puppets are disrupting 15% of global maritime trade, while Tehran's coffers swelled by $10 billion through sanctions evasion last year alone.
And I certainly intend to do so. If it's up to me, they won't have it. They're close on fissile material. They still have other problems to develop such weapons. And it's up to us, to all of us, and it's up to Israel, too, to make sure that doesn't happen.
Let's say you do actually manage to destroy Hamas in Gaza. Why would that deflect Iran from its major goal, as you describe it?
I didn't say that it would deflect it from the major goal. I said that there are twin goals. One is to defeat Hamas in Gaza because it's trying to use its proxies and other means to conquer the Middle East. Stop that. But secondly, and in parallel to that, act against Iran's attempt to develop nuclear weapons. You're quite right. They're two separate issues, but they're joined in the hip. And the hip is Iran's aggression and ideology, which has to be blocked here and there.
But just sort of finally on this point, I mean, since they've continued to push in the region, they continue to push at all of your borders, they continue to search for a nuclear weapon, surely, I mean, all of this is going to be the case unless there was a regime change in Tehran.
You're probably right.
Does anyone agree with you?
Well, I agree with me.
That's enough.
A few more.
Okay. As we start to draw to a close, let me bring us back to domestic issues in Israel. It seems to me that the Israeli public had suffered such a shock and is still going through a trauma about what happened on the 7th because they never believed that this was possible. They never believed, they believed that there were rockets that would come in. They knew that they'd had that for years. But they never thought it was possible that Hamas would break through and come right into Israel. Some people I speak to say in Israeli politics and security establishment that you had the conception wrong. That the conception was that Hamas wanted to be corrupt and get rich, and that the government, security services and others didn't believe that they actually wanted to do what they did on the 7th.
Well, it's actually, it may be true of some people, but it certainly wasn't true of me. Because I believe that we can't cut deals with Hamas. I called them ISIS many years ago. When they took over, I said, this is Hamastan. These people will work to attack us. I warned that they would rocket us. This was dismissed at the time that we left Gaza. I left the government before that happened. I resigned from the government. I said, this is what will happen. We'll have a terrorist state of these this Muslim Brotherhood branch that will seek to destroy Israel. So the question was, what do you do about it? And my conclusion was that we have to continuously cut these wild weeds. But we didn't get the agreement to actually yank out the weeds because, as I once said in a government meeting, I said this would require sacrificing hundreds of our soldiers and probably will end up having quite a few casualties on the Palestinian population, given Hamas's tactic of hiding behind civilians while attacking our civilians. And it will create other problems. We couldn't get the domestic consensus to make such a definitive solution to the problem of Hamas. That is, no one would agree across the Israeli public to go in and basically destroy Hamas, go throughout Gaza and destroy Hamas. We didn't have the international consensus either. Nobody would understand. Why are we doing it?
While Israel slept, Hamas built its terror fortress with 300-plus miles of tunnels under Gaza, funded by Iran's $100 million annual allowance. Netanyahu's warnings echoed Churchill's pre-World War II alerts, both prophets in their own lands. The West played ostrich until October 7th's wake-up call turned Gaza's peaceful government into exposed terrorists. How many more scale atrocities must we witness before learning that radical Islamists mean exactly what they say?
Both conditions were created because of the Hamas savage attack on Israel on October 7th. But look how difficult it is for us to sustain this effort, which we are and which we're committed to achieve total victory, that after the worst, these horrific acts of barbarism, we now, 3-4 months into the battle, we have this critique of Israel. So my view was, we basically degrade their military capacities again and again and again. But I think that has changed now with the broad consensus of the Israeli public that we have to go in there and achieve total victory. There is no substitute for total victory.
Two final questions, if I may. Firstly, on your own, this happened, or let me put it this way, this happened on your watch as Prime Minister, October the 7th. A number of people, senior in the military and intelligence apparatus in this country, have taken some responsibility for it. Do you?
Well, I think there's a responsibility and a mission of a government to protect its people, and clearly we failed in that. And all of us will have to answer questions. When at the end of the war, there will be investigations, there will be systemic examination of what went wrong, and responsibilities will be assigned. That's fine. I'm not concentrating on that now. I'm concentrating on one responsibility that I have, and that is to win this war and achieve total victory. And I think that's what we should all concentrate on.
You're the longest-serving Prime Minister in Israeli history, and you've seen political leaders come and go, a bewildering number among your allies. How many presidents is it now?
Who's counting?
Of the United States?
I'm not counting.
You've been in this a long time. There's a famous statement that was made of Joseph Chamberlain, not of Neville Chamberlain, but of Joseph Chamberlain, that all political careers end in failure. Do you think that's the case with you?
I don't care.
You don't care?
No, I don't care. This whole, the whole legacy obsession is one that I don't really care very much for. I'll tell you why. Because first of all, it depends who writes the history. And history now is being rewritten in Wikipedia and all that. You know, people just distort history. You can't really control that. What you can do in the time allotted to you on this earth is to do your best to serve the purpose that you dedicate your life for. I've dedicated my life to ensuring that in the coming decades, Israel will be as strong and as powerful and as prosperous, to ensure the questionable permanence of anything, but the permanence of the Jewish state. I say that with a philosophical observation that what is permanent? But that's what I'm allocating and dedicating my efforts to. So I don't really care about that question. You can't control it. Unless, as Churchill said, you write it yourself. Well,
you could write it yourself. You've already
I wrote an
written
autobiography. Yes, I did. But that's just to have my record there. But, you know, the forces that distort public opinion are so vast, not only in Israel, that seek to distort it. And the thing that I draw encouragement from, because I go around the country and I talk to our soldiers, I talk to the reserve officers, I talk to members of the public, and they basically get it. They get it, you know, that I'm leading the charge for total victory.
October 7th shattered Israel's invincibility myth, with 1,200 dead in a single day, more per capita than America's. Now Netanyahu, Israel's longest-serving prime minister, faces his Churchill moment: total victory or nothing. While Hamas burned through $3 billion in military infrastructure, turning Gaza into a terrorist fortress, the real question isn't about political careers ending in failure. It's about whether Western civilization can survive Islamic extremism's relentless advance.
That I'm representing them in many ways, and they appreciate it, and I see that. You know, I met a very famous entertainer in Israel, and he belongs to the left. And we met on one of these many events that he was appearing in, and I came there as well. And he said, "Prime Minister, can I talk to you for a second?" And I said, "Sure." He said, "You know, I don't belong to your camp, but I want to tell you something. I go around the country, and what I see about the war and about you is diametrically opposed to everything that I hear in these various, in the mainstream television studios, which are all very hostile, okay? That's not what I hear. It's not the polls that they publish. I'm telling you, it's fundamentally different. And you know something? I go around, and when I talk to the people, and I talk to our soldiers, I'm telling you, he's right. Legacy put aside, victory put forward, achieve it.
So there's another chapter in the biography of Benjamin Netanyahu.
It's not my biography that counts. It's not my biography. It doesn't help. The sands of time, will wash away, the waves will wash away everything, all the footprints in the sand. That's what happens. But, we have to do what we can in the time that we have available to defend this country and to assure its future. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I care about.
While mainstream media peddles doom and dissent, Israeli soldiers and citizens rally behind their wartime leader. Netanyahu, commanding Israel's most crucial battles since 1973, faces his defining moment. So any thoughts on what Douglas and Netanyahu just discussed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you never miss any of Douglas's debates.